front row.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, Motown.
Welcome back.
That's it. Goodbye. That was easy. So hey, what's happening, you guys? How you doing? Hi, I'm Rob.
Hello.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob.
Hello, people coming to see Rob. Nice to see you.
This is such a joy to be here, you guys. I guess this little event is called The Many Voices of Rob Paulsen, and we've got a nice little crowd. So I think the best way to do this is probably maybe just a little Q&A, because I would love to answer any and all questions that I can about anything that I've done. And the fact is that I know most of the people that you guys would want to hear about. I don't necessarily know their shoe size or their blood type or you know, their respective parole officers. Or which
Why not?
Which rehab facilities they go. But that's a joke, by the way. But I'm happy to answer. I can just tell you firstly that I'm so grateful to be here. This is really, really sweet of Geek Fan Expo to bring me in. I'm always flattered that anybody takes any time to pay attention to what I've been lucky enough to do for a living for 30 years. I am actually from down the road. I was born not far from the corner of Middle Belt and Joy Road, from Livonia. And I grew up here for a while, then I lived in Rochester. I went to junior high school in Rochester, and I went to high school in Grand Blanc. And I've been in LA now for 30-odd years, but I am definitely a Michigander at heart. I'm a huge Red Wing fan. Gordy is my hero, always will be. That's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I wanted to be a hockey player. Fortunately, by the time I was about 17, I realized I had neither the talent nor the temperament to make a dime playing hockey. So I decided to do something very practical, become an actor. And I fell back on that. And so, fortunately, it's worked out. I can tell you, as a general overview, many of you will have questions, I think, about how did I get into voice acting. It was not something that I said when I was a kid, I want to do cartoon voices. I grew up as a singer who became an actor, desperately loved to perform. I presume, like a lot of you, my friend Keith is here, is a great sax player, and I think when when you're a kid, you have something that really sort of floats your boat, and you love to do it for the noblest of reasons, which is because it makes you feel good, right? And it entertains yourself and ultimately other people, which is a really, truly lovely thing. I just didn't stop. And when I went to Los Angeles in 1978, driving in my little Honda full of stuff from Grand Blanc, still remember my mother standing on the porch back in Grand Blanc in her bathrobe, crying. I've never seen her in California, but my God, that's like going to Saginaw. maybe even West Branch. You know, it's really far. Or Bad Axe. Anyway, when I went to LA, it was ostensibly to do live action, which I did. I had a huge theater background. So for my age, at 22, I had a relatively large amount of experience. A lot of work in clubs as a singer, years of it, 6 nights a week. Great, you know what that's like. It's great experience because you learn how to deal with things that break. You learn how to deal with the fact that you forget a lyric, you screw up, you realize it's not the end of your life, drunks, all that stuff. I'm not saying that that's a great way. I'm just saying it's great experience, right? It's not necessarily something to aspire to. So when I came to LA, I loved cartoons like everybody else, but remember, and for those of you, the mean age here is probably 28, right? And I'm probably, you and I are probably the, we're the older. But you're younger than I am. So I am a little older. I was the entertainment at the Last Supper. In those days, I was called Shecky of Arimathea. Jesus, what a party. Thank you for getting that. But I remember when I came to LA, the cartoons were pretty much relegated to Saturday morning on CBS, ABC, and NBC, right? I mean, when I grew up here, we had Channel 50, WKBD in Detroit, and we would have like Sir Graves Ghastly and local Bill Kennedy Showtime and local TV. that would show syndicated cartoons, Tom Terrific and Rocky and Bullwinkle and all that. But all of the cartoons were pretty much Saturday morning. And it was the same way because in '78, we were just barely getting through with cassettes. You know, CDs hadn't even come around yet. No VHS, HBO was just starting, no real cable, no satellite. And so, you know, the cartoons were being done by a handful of actors, many of whom I was aware of. And I knew who Paul Frees and Mel Blanc and June Foray and all these wonderful actors and actresses were. It just wasn't something that was in the forefront of my mind because I was more interested in what was available, which was commercials, TVs, movies, and I did that stuff. So I got the opportunity in the mid-'80s to read for a couple of cartoons, G.I. Joe and Transformers. So I was on the original of those shows. It's cool now being old enough to see a lot of these shows have this renaissance, where a lot of you who grew up watching that stuff now have kids, and it's really a great place to be. But it didn't take me long when I got the opportunity to start doing cartoons that I realized, wow, this is cool. I mean, there are a million average-looking white guys with SAG cards in LA, and a lot of them are really talented, and a lot of them aren't. But that's just the way it goes. However, to be involved in something which didn't involve being judged or getting the gig or not getting the gig based on your height, your color, your hair, you know, I love that. And so, because I was a huge cartoon fan as a kid, and my heroes were Jonathan Winters and you know, Carol Burnett and all great improv, the Red Skeleton, but also Peter Sellers, the Goons, the Pythons. So I was, you know, those guys were all very inspirational. But to get an opportunity to read for things as an actor that had nothing to do with the way I looked was really cool. It didn't take me long, especially when I realized I could get paid for it. And I thought, Jesus, this is really, really, really cool. And it doesn't preclude me from doing the live action stuff. Right? So that's where things really changed. So what I would like to do is I've given you kind of an overview of how I got there and a little bit about my beginning. But if you'd like to ask me any questions about the work I've done, or except you can't ask them. No questions from you. You're the only one. I know, it's just not fair to be able to tone it down a little. So please, okay, I would really love to help you if I could. And you, because you're just so incredibly lovely, what would you like me to ask me?
How many voices have you done total?
27 and a half. The question was, how many voices have I done in total? 27 and a half. You know, there's a really lovely website called, I think it's called Behind the Voice Actors. Are you guys familiar with that? Some of you, Michelle, are you probably?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of keep a little bit of a thumbnail idea of how many voices we've done. What is your name, sweetie? Elise? Ellie, you're just beautiful. I really don't know how many voices I've done because I don't really keep track of them. The people who keep track of that type of stuff, they tell me that I've done like a couple hundred, 250 different characters. And that's probably give or take a few, but you know, that may be a couple of lines here, a couple of lines there. I know that I've done over 2,000 half hours of animation, more like 2,500 now, and probably 1,000 commercials, and that's not including the on-camera stuff, all of which is for you. Thank goodness nobody judges me on here. I've got a face for this. But so I've done a lot of that stuff. Are you familiar with any of the stuff that I've done? What's your favorite?
Carl? You like Carl? That's really great. Are you married?
Are you married?
Do you want to be? Oh,
She's not a llama though.
I have a llama. And his poop isn't really hard to clean up either. Not that I would do it.
Anyway,
Thank you for liking Carl.
the poor girl's going, this is so weird. This guy old enough to be my grandpa is talking to me like Carl, and it's just weird. Take me out of here, Mom. Thank you. I like Carl too, and you know, a lot of girls like Carl, I think, because he's fairly innocuous, which means he's kind of non-threatening. Notice how I said threatening? It's an interesting choice, actually, isn't it? And I'll tell you why. Are any of you actors? You have some actors here? Okay, yeah. The reason I say that is because, isn't it interesting? I've been doing that character for a long time, and I love Carl too. Jimmy Neutron was a great show. Very well written. Really cool show. But it's really fascinating, isn't it, that if I'm speaking to this pretty girl and I say, yeah, that character is non-threatening. Rob, says non-threatening. Carl says, I'm really non-threatening. You see the difference? And threatening sounds kind of weird and almost kind of like he's a little simple, right? And he is. But isn't that interesting that immediately when I start doing Carl, that choice goes to that saying threatening, not threatening. Those little things are what makes the character organic and interesting. So I'm glad that you brought that up because it's really cool how that happens as an actor. That's one of my favorite characters too. And I tell people that, I say, well, I don't get many chicks. I get a lot of baby chickens, which is weird, but they do give me their phone numbers, so I got that going for me. Thank you for asking, sweetie. I appreciate it. Who has another question? Yes, sir.
Not really a direct question of necessarily any like the broad spectrum of your career. There was actually a question about Animaniacs. Do you have like a favorite song there was to record or something?
Oh gosh. Well, no. Actually, are you Ethan?
Yes.
Ethan. Thank you for. Did you guys hear Ethan's question? Okay. Hey, you can come in. It's okay. Yeah, never mind. Hell yeah. Quickly it changes. Fickle business. Ethan's question was with respect to the music on Animaniacs. Do I have a favorite song? You know, I don't mean to be coy, but that really is like a Sophie's Choice. There are so many great songs. And I've shared this information with a couple of my friends, and maybe some of you follow me on Facebook. In keeping with Ethan's question, Randy Rogel, who wrote the lion's share of all of those, he wrote United States, Canada, he wrote the countries, the states, the I'm cute, he wrote, wake up, it's late, it's 20 minutes after 8, he wrote all that stuff. So he and I now are doing, putting together a show in which we're doing all those songs with a live orchestra. And the first one is going to be in Denver at the 26th this month, 3 weeks from tonight. And an 80-piece orchestra with a big screen and the cartoons, and it is unbelievably entertaining. And I'm not just saying that because I got to do them. I'm telling you, my friend Keith, a couple of you here might be players. When you hear music or when you play music with a giant band like that, it's overwhelming. And when you hear songs like that played with an orchestra that was twice as big as the one that they've used to record them, it's fantastic. So anyway, all of the songs are pretty magical. And when you consider that one guy wrote virtually, we're doing 20 of Randy's songs. And we're doing not only Animaniacs, but we're doing 5 from Hysteria. For instance, he wrote one called, that is a song about all the plays of William Shakespeare. And I'll give you a little piece of it. It goes like this. A play by William Shakespeare always stimulates your thought, because you spent 2 hours trying to figure out the plot. He wrote famous lines and phrases for his dog-like out-damn spot. So who is this guy the critics praise, who's famous for his turn of phrase, wrote 37 different plays and lived in Elizabethan days and made Laurence Olivier's career? Lend me your ear. He lived in Stratford-on-Avon, apartment 2B. Was it 2B or not 2B? I'm really not sure. Please explain it to me. How do you understand Shakespeare with all of his harks and the hoes and the flowery prose that he writes for men wearing tights? So bring up the lights and let's study the bard. Now that's just the first sequence, right? Well, thank you, but the applause goes to Randy. Now, we also wrote a song about one of the edicts came down from Tom Ruger, who produced all that stuff, who said we need to have a funny song about war. So Randy wrote a song called the Invasion Song. It goes, several million years ago, a prehistoric man discovered that his neighbor had a nicer piece of land. So he invaded, confiscated, that's how countries grew. And with that attack, we now look back at who invaded who. Syria invaded the Romans, who invaded the Arab sheiks. Hannibal then invaded the Romans invaded the Greeks. Gladiators invaded someone invaded Japan. Japan invaded Manchuria, and Iraq invaded Iran. Can't we all just get along? Why do we have to fight? Why not just accept you're wrong, admit that I was right? Diplomacy and compromise are how the peace is made. When things get slack, watch your back, because somebody's going to invade. Now, isn't that great? And then he goes into, you know, the Germans invaded the Venom, the Germans invaded the French, the Germans invaded the and invaded North Africa next. The Germans invaded the Venom, Spain, along with the Soviet regions, the Poles and Norwegians, the Belgians, the Brits, and the Danes. You know, it goes on. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is a guy's got so much talent. He can write a song that's making you go, and I didn't even get the first stanza right, and you're laughing. So, the answer to your question is I don't have a particular favorite because they all do exactly what they did to you. They make you laugh and they make you go, that's unbelievable. And trust me, when you do this with a big band and a big hall, it's going to be spectacular. And ultimately, the goal is to get it around. So trust me, if I can bring it back here, I'd love to. But certainly, I think the argument can be made that the most popular one is Yakko's World.
Of course.
And that is for many reasons, not the least of which is it's just a freaking amazing song. And it works beautifully with the cartoon. It's a great cartoon. If I can be so bold as to say that's one of those, when I'm dead and gone, that will be one of those cartoons where people say, this is a great 2.5-minute cartoon. It's killer. Many reasons, not the least of which is the fact that it rhymes at that time, all of the sovereign nations of the world. But nice little musical flourishes, like when it goes, China, Korea, Japan. Well, then the orchestra goes, dun 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 dun, right? How cool is that?
I never actually noticed that.
Well, that's Richard Stone. That's the genius of Richard Stone who orchestrated that. Randy wrote it.
Incredible.
It's incredibly incredible. So when you hear, you know, it's China, Korea, Japan, just right in there, just that little flourish. That's what's called genius. And so that song is pretty magnificent. And there's a great story about the background of that song. This is a great example. I know a couple of you are writers, and I love talking to people who have, not only folks who are fans, but people who have artistic inclinations as well. I love to share these stories because people often ask me, is being an actor hard? Is it hard? Well, you know, hard is pouring hot tar in August, right? Hard is working your dairy farm. That's a hard job. That's a hard job. My job is not hard. My job is a pure labor of love. The difficult part about my job is getting the work. That's the hard part. But I chose this. So if it sucks and things don't go very well, I'm not going to cry about it. I mean, I chose to, how much luckier can I be? I'm doing something I've wanted to do since I've been a kid, and I'm getting paid for it. Now these nice people are coming to hear me speak. So, not hard in the traditional sense. What is important to understand is the level of competition and how deep the talent pool is. That's not to dissuade anybody from following your passion. I did. I came from Flint. But the reason I bring this up is that here's a great example of how deep the talent pool is. Randy, whom we're talking about, who wrote Yakko's World, all those songs. Randy graduated from West Point. Then he went to get his graduate degree from Boston College. He's already a smart kid, right? Goes to work for Procter & Gamble living in Seattle, making a ton of money. I don't even know what he did, but he's doing really well. But he always wanted to write. Scripts, music, theater, musical theater background. He's an amazing dancer, too, incredible dancer. So he finally said, screw it. I'm going to leave my 6-figure-a-year job as a 30-year-old with Procter & Gamble, and I'm going to go to LA and give it my shot. Comes to LA, bangs on the doors, a couple of years, finally gets a job writing on Batman, the animated series. Okay? Great show. Alan Burnett, right? Hired Randy. All right, let me see a spec script. That's not bad. All right. So then he goes on, he writes a couple of scripts, wins an Emmy. Okay? So he's clearly good. Here's about that Animaniacs is coming around. And mind you, remember I said he's a musical guy, got a background in music, came to LA, got hired on Batman, which is clearly drama. Excellent show, right? So he says to the people at Warner Brothers, oh goodness gracious, this is so great. This show Animaniacs, Mr. Spielberg, I can't wait, I want to be on that show too. And they're like, you just won an Emmy for Batman. You're a drama guy. You know, even that, he gets pigeonholed, right? You're a drama, dude, what do you want? We hired you on Batman, you won an Emmy. You're going to make a pile of money, you're on the staff, You know, don't push it. Yeah. But I can write music. Right. Okay. We got people that do that. No. Yeah. Just right. So finally, he says to Tom Ruger, again, the genius behind Animaniacs, "Please let me just play you something." Tom has a piano in his office. Randy walks in, and Randy's audition piece is United States, Canada, Mexico, Canada. That's what he had in his back pocket to audition. And that is an example of how deep the talent pool is. Now, to me, that is not frightening. To me, that's inspiring, okay? So that's why I like to tell those stories, because I don't want people to say, "Oh, he's too talented, I can't do it." Well, then you probably shouldn't be. Everything is a struggle. Everything is, everything that is worth doing has some measure of beating your head against the wall, right? But to me, that's inspiring that a guy with that much talent, even he had to bang on the door. And then, of course, he plays a song, and you can see that, he said, Tom was just going, "Hang on a second. I think you need to come to my office right now. Don't go anywhere." And then, of course, now the rest is history. Randy's got, 10 Emmys, and now he's writing, oh God, he's done so much stuff. He wrote a couple of songs in Rio 2 for Christian Chenoweth. I mean, the guy's an unabashed genius. But I love telling that story because it is a great example of how not only deep the talent is, but how driven these people are. I mean, it's a big deal just to get into West Point. And I'm a big supporter of the military, but irrespective of that, you don't get into West Point unless you're, a congressman has to submit you, right? Not to mention your grade point. That's not good enough. Then he goes to Boston College. Then he gets a job for a pile of money. I don't want to do this. He's driven. And you know what? We're the same age, and the passion and the drive has not abated one iota, which is why we're doing this stuff with the orchestras. I'll probably be backwards $5,000 by the time we do our show because of the amount of money it takes to get it going. But that doesn't matter. We're doing it because we love to do it. And the passion never, ever changes. If you play your sax, you don't get paid every time you play your sax. You play your sax because you can't not play your sax, right? And that's what I love about being an actor. The excitement that you see me speaking with is not manufactured. I'm just as passionate at 107 in dog years as I was at 15. I love my gig. Thank you for your question. Who else has a question? Yes, ma'am.
What character did you find most challenging to portray?
Well, I suppose Pinky, because it's so stupid.
The most challenging, I would say, actually one of the I did an animated version of The Mask. I got to be Jim Carrey for a whole lot less money. You guys remember that show?
Yeah.
I think we did 3 seasons or something. It was on CBS. The coolest thing about that was that I got to sing the theme song, which is a great theme song. The Mask theme song was written by Christopher Neil Nelson, and what's his name? I forgot the other guy's name. 2 really wonderful actors, Keith Baxter, who both wrote a bunch of stuff for Tasmania, which I also worked. That was a great theme song. That was probably the most challenging character because every episode required me to change and become a different character dependent upon what happened when Stanley put the mask on. So, I might be a cowboy, and then he'd take the mask off and put it on, and all of a sudden he was a pirate, and then he was just a stupid guy, and then he was just some like Julia Child's cook. Ooh, there you go, a couple of tickets over my finger, So that was probably the most. We have oxygen if you need it, man. That is the most. Can I just tell you? That is the sweetest sound in the world. Nothing makes me happier than to hear somebody gasping for air from the mouth. It's so much better than hearing somebody go, "Oh," we're so sick of Rob's. Yeah. So that probably, Anna, was the most challenging one because I had to change on a dime. But again, for some of you who might be actors, I have a lot of improv background, and that really came into. That is what's helped me get a lot of work and get jobs like that where I change on a dime and come up with stuff on the spur of the moment. So that was probably the most challenging. There are other ones that are a little onerous vocally, and one of which was I did a character. I love this guy. Do you have any Fairly Odd Parents fans here?
Yes.
By the way, Butch Hartman, who produced that show and created it, is from Detroit. And Butch gave me a character on that show called Mark Che.
Yes.
Big, oh, you know him. Isn't it interesting? Now, interesting, I just said, as Rob, I say interesting. As Mark Chang, I drop the G because it sounds like a interesting. You know people who do that? I was running. It's crazy, it's burning up. B-U-R-N-E-E-N, burning, right? But it works for the character. So anyway, I love that guy, but he has 2 speeds. And this! There's like no in between, baby. And so that one used to really tear up my throat. But it's so much fun to do because he was so stupid. And then I got to play his father, who was kind of like this version of Ted Knight and Paul Thorne. But the cool thing about being Mark's father was that the girl who played my wife was Lorraine Newman from Saturday Night Live, who has since become one of my dearest friends, and that's always cool when you get to work with a showbiz, comedy, pop culture icon, one of the 5 original members of SNL. That was pretty bitchin'. Yeah, those probably answered that particular question. Yes, sir.
So I want to piggyback off the fact that you've kind of been bouncing around up here actually as characters. Is that because of your improv? Like, where did you study improv and stuff?
What's your name, sir?
My name's Lance.
Lance. Lance. Oh, that's right. Sorry, Lance. Yes, it is because of my improv background, but also it's something that I just. Well, also let's face it, I have an audience. I mean, I'm performing. I have an audience. I think it would be boring for me, and even more boring for you, if I just came up here and said, so then I got Animaniacs. It was an interesting circumstance. Yeah, I made a lot of money and got an Emmy, and so so that I'm an actor, I'm a performer, and you guys are nice enough to have me here. So the truth is, I have an audience, and it is a Jones. I'm not going to argue, but it would never even deny it. Being a performer, and especially one who lives to perform and who enjoys it, like anything else, it is like a drug, and I enjoy it. The nice thing is that I'm not going to be arrested for it, and I don't have to worry about going to rehab. But it is I love it. I love the feeling I get when you laugh and when you smile and when you gasp for air. That is like music to me. It really makes me so happy in my soul. So that's why I do it. Now, in terms of my background, I was lucky because check this out. Talk about work. My dad used to work with a company called Junior Achievement. I don't know if they have that around anymore.
I remember that.
Yeah, when he would go, right? He would go and be like a mentor, where they would help young executives, and my father was a steel executive for Ryerson Steel in Detroit, so he would go and help young people learn the ropes. Well, check out my Junior Achievement, man. When I was working on movies and adding voices to movies like Spaceballs and Tron and all these things, all the people I'm working with are Phil Hartman, Cassandra Peterson, who is Elvira, Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, Lorraine, Tress MacNeille, Nancy Cartwright, who is Bart, right? All these people are my contemporaries. They're the people that I'm working with, and so I'm sitting here with Phil Hartman, 10 years before SNL, watching Phil bounce off the walls. He's probably 8 or 9 years older than I. Holy smoke. Brilliant shit. Yes.
And an artist, too.
An artist, incredible artist. And not only brilliant, but a really, really lovely guy. And a gearhead like me. We talk cars a lot. We're big car guys. But anyway, so I'm hearing, and at the same, like I was talking about Randy having that in his back pocket, the stuff that would come out of Phil's mouth was magical, intimidating, to a fellow actor, but at the very same time, inspiring. So it didn't make me go, oh my God, I can't do this. It made me go, how do I do that, right? And so that's where I got on I cut my improv teeth. with those guys. A lot of it also came because I was lucky enough to work with a couple of bands in the Michigan area where I would do 6 nights a week doing live music. And man, I'm telling you, you really got to think on your feet because you have people who are impatient, a little liquored up, and things break, things don't work, and it helps you think on your feet. And if all of a sudden the bass player, breaks a bass string, which rarely happens, but if it does, kind of go, ooh, hang on a second. Okay, say something. Oh, bad. Well, you have 2 choices. You can either go, I don't know what to say, or we're going to take a break, or you can say, no, I'll do something. Yeah. Let me get the microphone. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you work on your comedy chops, and sometimes it goes like this, and sometimes you have one person who laughs, and you go, oh, I'm going to zero in on the one guy, and he did something, then it builds on itself. So it's basically embracing the challenge and embracing your fear and taking the fear from a place of paralyzing to, I'm going to get beyond that, because on the other side of that fear is that Jones I was talking about, where you go, oh, that feels so great. And Joan Rivers, God rest her soul, she just was talking about that very thing at 81 years old, how she just loves the process and she lives for the laugh, right? So it doesn't change, and you can have people who are like me who are journeyman actors. I'm not a celebrity. The characters are famous, and I'm a part of it, but I don't draw them, and I don't write them. But I often get the benefits of being with you lovely people. And so, yeah, all of that stuff, bouncing all over the place, is just an extension of the fact that whether I'm doing it for money or a regular session or hanging with a couple of friends, I just love the process. I love it. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir. I love your kids, by the way.
My what?
Your kids.
Oh.
And your wife is a lovely lady, too. You're a pretty damn good-looking fellow yourself.
Were you a Ghoul fan?
I love the Ghoul.
He was our director.
You
I
really?
mean all the froggies.
Oh, well, you see, the reason I love the Ghoul, and I think you mentioned this to me, Michelle,
Yeah.
the reason I love the Ghoul is that when a couple of buddies of mine are from Cleveland, and there was a guy down there named Goulardi, who was Ernie Anderson.
Yes.
And Ernie ended up going to LA being a big promo trailer guy. He was the guy when we were in high school who would say, tonight on Vegas, got the love, Dodge, Ram Tough. Well, I worked with Ernie forever. He used to call me baby. He always go, hey, how you doing, baby? Ernie, it's great. He'd open his mouth, and it was great. So he was Goulardi, and Tim Conway worked on that show and stuff. The Ghoul, I love that because it was Froggy and, oh God, what, is he still around, the Ghoul?
He's down in Cleveland. He's retired.
Yeah.
But he does come up to Detroit to do parties if he gets hired.
Now, was he on Channel 50?
He was on Channel 50, Channel 20,
20, okay.
Channel 62 briefly,
Right.
back on 20, and hasn't been on the air since '84.
Well, thank
around
you
here.
very much, because at the same time as the Ghoul was Sir Graves Ghastly, right?
Yeah.
And I love, I love that stuff. Because all that local TV stuff, it's like, and the same with this guy, remember Bill Kennedy Showtime? Rita Bell's prize movie, right?
Yes, I was on that show.
Were you, honey?
I
I thought I recognized you.
I know. I was smaller than this.
How about that?
They had me do a tap dance
Oh,
on it. So
well,
it was
are you-
funny. No.
Oh, that's okay.
No.
David was-
I'll let
See, all you can say is, I'm sorry, I'm in the union, I
Yeah,
can't.
that's it. I didn't get my card today.
That's right.
You know.
Well, I'll tell you what, that kind of stuff was, and thank you for your work, because all of those things were very inspiring to me and a lot of my friends from Detroit. Dave Coulier, you guys know Dave, his Uncle Joey on Full House. Dave's one of my best friends, played hockey together forever, he played golf all the time together. He just got married up in Montana. And Dave, Tim Allen, Eric Head, Tom Sharp, there are so many of us from out here. Butch Hartman, we were just talking about, are all inspired by every major city. Johnny Ginger.
I worked with Butch's nephew.
Did you really?
Yeah, for 30 years at this factory.
Yeah, and when I was a kid, WXYZ TV, Channel 7 in Detroit used to have Soupy Sales was there.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
No Soupy.
And Johnny Ginger,
Yep.
Milky the Clown, all these guys were inspirational to me, and I didn't really know it at the time, but as I got older, I would remember, because I love the fact that there was, as I got older, I used to reflect on the fact and enjoy the fact that a guy who was my dad's age would say, oh yeah, I'm gonna dress up like a vampire and jump in a casket. We're gonna do it every Saturday, and we're gonna show crappy movies and just lampoon the hell out of them, and it's going to be great fun. And I mean, I'm 58 years old, but I go to work and I got to think like a 9-year-old. If I was cognizant of the fact that I act like an idiot all the time, I wouldn't make any money. You know, hopefully I've got it encapsulated so I know when and where not to act like an idiot. Although my wife would argue that. But I love that. That is the genesis of what makes people go on to, you know, work in big time show business. I get to work in the coolest sandbox in the world with Steven Spielberg and Maurice LaMarche and Billy West and John DiMaggio and all these incredible actors. But I can tell you, having worked with Mel Blanc probably 3 times before he passed away, and Joan Rivers, just listening to her speak.
Oh, yes.
You know, right? All these people, the way they talk, they don't lose that magical sense of performing and liking and that excitement. They don't sort of grow into being a grown-up. You know, they still have this desire. Robin Williams, God bless him, you know, he clearly was struggling with lots of stuff. Jonathan Winters was the same way. And I had the great privilege of working with Jonathan half a dozen times, which he was one of my all-time heroes. And he was tweaked. Unfortunately, that was part of his genius. And we got to see that, as the audience, got to reap the benefits of it. But yeah, man, there is definitely a part of us that is a little bit, you know, goofy. And unfortunately, you know, sometimes people aren't able to handle it in the context of normal life. The beauty of the fact that we've got film and kinescopes and video and stuff is that we can look back and go, wow, these people really, you know, changed our lives or got us through some pretty difficult times, you know. Yes, ma'am.
You said you liked Gordie Howe.
Oh,
He had to
my-
make one of Gordie Howe's awards for Channel 4 one time.
God bless you. Gordie, have I got Gordie House?
It was an elbow with a boxing glove coming out of it.
I will, this is not the proper forum for it, but Gordie and Colleen Howe have been so nice to me and my family. Matter of fact, I won an Emmy years ago for Pinky, and I was on TV, and when I came home on the red eye from New York, and it was at Madison Square Garden, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang, and it was Colleen Howe. Hi, honey, it's Colleen. I saw you on TV. Colleen, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 7, and at that time they were living in, oh God, where were they? It wasn't Birmingham. It was Sterling Heights. I know it's early out there. She says, 4. You want an Emmy? Oh my God! She says, Tad, Gord, why? I hear Gord go, way to go, buddy. What is it? They're the loveliest people. I have so many great stories. And I won't bother you with them now, but boy, I'll tell you what, I learned an awful lot from Gordie. I'll tell you one really quick story. To the extent that I've cultivated any celebrity, and if anybody feels like, oh, you know, your autograph and stuff, I cannot tell you how flattering that is. But to the extent that I have any of that, I learned the best lesson I've ever learned about how to handle celebrity, and as a result of working with Gordie. Gordie and I had become great friends from charity hockey games. We got to play at the Joe, and you know, it was a great time. Anyway, Gordie and Colleen invited me up to an event in Vancouver many years ago, at probably the mid-90s, when the first Turtles batch was huge. Gordie's grandkids were huge Turtle fans. I was up there, I was sitting next to Gordie all day signing stuff, and I remember there was a young man, probably about my age, I was probably 30 at the time, and he had been waiting for Gordie, and he finally got up to Gordie and he said, "Thank you very much for signing this, Mr. Howe. Your hand must be getting tired." At the time, Gordie was probably 65, and Gordie's response was, "My pleasure, son. I've worked too hard for this privilege." Now, he's probably at that point signed 1 million autographs. He's Gordie Howe, for God's sake, right? So, man, I will never forget that. And to watch the way he handled being who he is was just an incredible lesson in humility. He really is all, you know, and he's getting old. He's 86, and I don't know that I'll ever get a chance to see him again. But he really will always be a Saskatchewan farm boy at heart, and is an amazing, amazing fellow. So, Thank you for your work with Gord. Yes, ma'am.
If you could pick any of your characters that you've played at any point to, kind of hang out with and do cards or eat pizza or,
What a great
what was, who would they be?
Wow, I tell you what, I think it'd be, I would really kind of, I'm probably most like Yakko because I'm kind of a smartass.
But you kind of have to have that as your second language living in here in Michigan.
Yeah, I would, yeah. I think Pinky would be a gas to hang out with because he's such a sweet, unassuming, truly he really, the thing I think that made Pinky and the Brain work so well is that they really do love each other. Pinky really believes that the Brain has the best interests of the world at heart. And the Brain, as much as he wants to beat the living daylights out of Pinky, really truly loves, they really do, they care about each other. So with a character that has that much love in his heart, I would really like to hang out with Pinky. I'd love to get him a little tanked.
Hi, Rob, you're really handsome. Oh, I feel it. No. I think so, Rob. But if Jimmy cracks code and nobody cares, why does he keep doing it?
So that would probably be kind of fun. That's a great question, sweetie. I appreciate that. Yeah, I really love Pinky. Carl is sweet, but I'd be really bored after a while.
Carl, get some backbone.
Yeah, I think Pinky. What would your favorite one be to hang out?
Oh boy, I'm really gonna date myself here.
Well, at least you're dating.
Moki from Greatest Adventures of the Bible.
Oh my gosh! Thank you for bringing that. That is one of the. Did you guys ever see that? What is your name, sweetie?
Katie.
Katie. Katie is bringing up a show I did for Joe. It was a pet project of Joe Barbera of Hanna-Barbera. It was the beginning of my animation career. I had actually at Hanna-Barbera, they were doing when I was a kid, one of my favorite shows was Johnny Quest, right? And it was an ABC show on prime time on Friday nights back in the early '60s. And Johnny Quest, the voice of Johnny Quest was Tim Matheson. I don't know if you guys know that, right? So I love that show. Then it came back in the mid-'80s for the second time at Hanna-Barbera, who did it originally, and I got Haji. I was Haji on the second iteration of Johnny Quest, which is a huge deal for me because, I'm a Flint, Michigan, I'm, about as white as you can get from Flint, Michigan, and I'm going, sim, sim, salabim, give a race to pterodactyl. So it was a huge thrill for me. And then at the same time, Joe Barbera, who is a very devout Catholic, wanted to do a series of greatest stories from the Bible. And it was going to be 3 time travelers, one of whom was this little Middle Eastern boy named Moki. And they thought, well, this guy can do Haji. You want to do Moki? Sure. What does he sound like? Haji. His name is Moki. Okay. Like Moki Bear? No. So it was like this, and we're traveling around to, with David and Bathsheba and Moses and Noah and the flood and then they would bring in celebrities to do the lead character in each story, right? Mm-hmm. It was me and Terry McGovern and Darlene Carr were the 3 characters that were time travelers. But like Ed Asner played Moses, and
Ed Asner played Joseph. Lauren Green played Moses.
Lauren Green, thank you. Lauren Green, right? Pa from Bonanza, man. I got to work with Lauren Green. That was a huge deal for me. Thank you for remarking on that. And then I remember, and the guy that directed all the cartoons at Hanna-Barbera in those days was Gordon Hunt, who is Helen's father. And so
and she played Mary.
Yeah, she came in and played Mary. Yeah, it was great. Perry, what the hell his name used to be on? Oh God, some TV show. Perry King. I forgot. There were a lot of great actors that came in to do that. Really, really fun. But thank you for, you want to hang out with Moki, huh? And see what it was like hanging out with all them Bible folk.
Yeah, well. The other one would be, just because the 2 of them were so close to what really started me loving cartoons, was Gusto Gummy.
Oh, thank you. And you know what? Gummy Bears was a great show. Talk about a killer cast. It was Ed Gilbert, June Foray. And
Yeah, I heard your podcast with her.
How about that? Yeah, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I've got a really fun podcast. It's free. If you like what I'm talking about and you like voice actors, you should listen to it. It's called Talkin' Tunes, TALKIN''TOONS. You can get it on iTunes or my website, which is robpaulsenlive.com. It's free. You'll love it. I got like 115 of them. And June was on. And at the time, she was 96. She's almost 98 now. I met her at Hanna-Barbera on Smurfs when she was 70. And, I mean, it's incredible, right? So, yeah, she was on that show. Corey Burton was on that show. Lorenzo Music was on that show, who is Garfield, and also, for those of us of a certain age, Carlton the Doorman, right?
Yeah.
Was on that show. Yeah, that's how he talked in real life. How you doing, Rob? I know that. Oh, God, that was a good show. People, to this day, really like Gummy Bears. That one and another one I did call Goof Troop. They really like that one.
Yeah, Goof Troop.
And that was interestingly, Carl, I stole Carl from the guy I did on Goof Troop because Carl's got this voice like this. But if I make him a little bigger and not quite as stupid, I'm PJ. Don't tell anybody. People love that show and they love that movie, the Goofy movie.
Yeah, Goofy movie and the sequel, extremely
Yeah,
goofy.
extremely goofy. Really great stuff. Thank you very much for bringing that up, sweetie. I appreciate that. Yeah, Michelle.
Don't forget to tell people if they go to LA to check out your show live when you do it.
Oh, thanks. If you go to LA, I got 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. If I go, we do our podcast now. I used to do it every week, but I'm traveling so much I don't have the time. So we try to do it once, maybe twice a month at the Improv, which is a very famous comedy club, that and the Comedy Store, where Robin Williams and Andy Kaufman and Steve Martin, those guys got their start. So I do my show now live at the Improv once or twice a month, and we try to have people that, who are in the cartoon business come on. And the last one we did was a really good one. We did it with Tom Ruger, who created Animaniacs and Hysteria and Pinky and the Brain and Tiny Toons. And we did a show with Tom and the cast of his new show called The 7D on Disney, which is a great cast. It's Maurice LaMarche, Billy West, Paul Rugg, who was Freakazoid, great actors, and Kevin Michael Richardson, who is a wonderful actor, and now he's Shredder on the new Turtles. So it's pretty cool. Come out if you want to check it out. Come see it. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
What when Animaniacs was on, it was very popular, of course. And do you know what? Was it cancellation simply one of those things, or?
I think that it wasn't canceled. I think they just decided that they did 100 of them, which is quite a bit. They probably reached a point at which it was cost effective for them to say, okay, we can do 100. It was a very expensive show to make, relatively speaking, for many reasons, not the least of which is the music. Because as a result of Steven Spielberg's involvement, you can get pretty much anything done you want. It was Steven. But, and he was a huge fan of Looney Tunes, so that's why he was inspired to produce those shows or be involved with producing them. But to score a half-hour cartoon show for television, the way that it was done in the 40s and 50s with Carl Stalling and all that great overture, curve the lights, this is it, we'll hit the heights. That was very expensive because every half hour was like a 40-piece orchestra. And I'm telling you what, going to watch those shows scored, it was amazing because it's a big screen. All the the composer is standing, conducting the orchestra. They're all watching what's on the picture. And, Yakko walks up the water tower. The xylophone guy goes, and then they cut to Dr. Scratch and Sniff, who raises an eyebrow, and there's one violin guy that goes, and it's really cool. But that's the way all cartoons were done. Fantasia, movies, and everything. But it got to be very expensive for obvious reasons. So I think probably what happened was that they figured that, they had obviously a deal. I don't know what the deal was, but Mr. Spielberg produced Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, Freakazoid. I think that was it. But then Tom produced all those, plus Batman, which was Superman. So that period of Warner Brothers from like 1988 through 2000 was unbelievably prolific. lot of really great stuff. Mark Hamill is one of my best friends. I had Mark on the podcast at the Improv Live. It was about a month before I went to go do the new Star Wars movie. You know, we had 200 people, the place was full, and we did a long Q&A. Not one person asked a question about Star Wars. It was all about the Joker, which shows you a couple of things, that Mark's talent, you know, goes way beyond just being the savior of the universe, right?
I'm so surprised. I'm so surprised to learn that it was Mark Hamill, the Joker.
He's a fine actor. Apart from being, you know, I mean, he's obviously most well known for, that's plenty, Luke Skywalker. But everybody there had a lot of questions all about the Joker because they were transfixed by what an incredible gift he had for that character.
He did an excellent job.
Oh, Jesus, my kid who's going to be 30. Next week, my son, when we would talk about Batman and Joker and stuff, he loves the Batman franchise, loves the Chris Nolan movies, all that stuff. But to my kid and a lot of his buddies, Batman is Kevin.
Yes.
And Joker is Mark.
Yes.
And he's like, I love, you know, the latest iteration. I'm going to watch every Batman movie. And he really liked Christian Bale and all that. But he said, I'm telling you, man, Kevin Conroy is the best.
He is the best.
Oh. So anyway, yeah, I think it just reached the end of the thing, and they kind of thought we've done 100. We can hopefully make our investment back in terms of reruns. But I'll tell you what's really cool is here we are 20 years later, and I can argue that the level of interest in Pinky the Brain and Animaniacs, let alone, we know Batman will forever be, you know, but just at Animaniacs and Pinky the Brain, there's an enormous audience and their kids who love watching that show. Now I think it's on Amazon Prime. It was on the Hub for a while, the DVDs. I'll bet we can get close to selling out that concert hall in Denver, and it's a couple thousand people, just for the music. So I feel really grateful to be part of it. The question then is, if they did it again, would you do it? Oh my God, in a heartbeat, because it really has become, I don't know if I can go so far as to say timeless, but I would bet it's verging on being a classic, and I don't think that I don't think that's hyperbole. I think that I'm fairly safe in saying it's pretty close.
The humor on there was just
it's so sharp.
so multi-level.
See, that's also Stephen and Tom Ruger and all those great writers, because they knew that, like, when I used to watch Rocky and Bullwinkle and Fractured Fairy Tales, and Looney Tunes with my dad, it was clear that he was laughing at a cultural reference that I didn't get. I was laughing at, you know, the fact that the coyote would go, you know, and so now, of course, older, I get the cultural references on Rocky and Bullwinkle, and now the same thing happens. Now you guys have kids, and they're watching it going, hey, I really like United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, but you're getting jokes about fingerprints. Fingerprints, you know, it's all about putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Right. And so that was absolutely by design, and it's paid off, because that's the genius of Tom Ruger and Steven Spielberg. 20 years later, people can laugh about stuff that they didn't get when they were 11. And so I'm really, really grateful. I think we have time for one more question. Yes, you get the question, not my beautiful little sister, Dot.
Of all the characters that you voiced, though, who's your favorite?
Who's your favorite?
Yakko.
That's mine! Oh my gosh, I had no idea. You're like clairvoyant. Did you see inside my brain?
Nope.
Oh, good. You saw inside my pinky? You see what I did there?
You know what? I love Yakko. I really, it's a tough call because I've been lucky enough to do so many. But the fact that I see a beautiful young lady like you, who says, when I say, hello, nurse, you do that. You do what you're doing right now, and that makes me so happy. I cannot even explain it to you. So I would have to say that that's my favorite character right now, because it's making you laugh. Thank you very much for telling me. I really appreciate the fact that you guys have allowed me to come out to the Great Lakes State and chat with all my home people.
Yeah.
And we're gonna, what's that?
Welcome home.
Oh, buddy, it is such a pleasure. I wish I could stay. I have so many places I'd like to go. My folks retired up to Grayling, and I would love to go back up there. Yeah, we went up there every summer, right, the day after school, man, right up to Grayling. And I'm telling you, man, if all of a sudden I found myself in a position where my wife said, I've had enough of cartoondom, bye, I think I'd take whatever money I had left, and I'd go to Traverse City. I love Traverse City. I love it there. So we had our parents' 50th wedding anniversary up at Glen Lake up there, and that is one of my favorite places in the world. Petoskey and Traverse City. I love it there. But anyway, I'm going to be here all weekend. How's that for show? Because I'll be here all weekend. I'll be here at the Elmwood Casino all weekend.
Tip the waitresses.
So yeah, don't forget to try the veal. Or if you're drinking, please don't drive. And if you're driving, use a car. So I'm not sure what am I doing now, Eric?
After this, right now, you're actually free.
I'm free? Free. What I probably will do then, I'm actually going to see if I can get a hold of my my dear sweet cousin who lives in Harper Woods, and maybe I could take him out to Chris Chelios has a place called Chelly's, which we go to every time I'm here. But anyway, I'm going to be here tomorrow, and we've got. Would you, Eric? Do you mind? Do you have my schedule for tomorrow? I do. Would you please tell these kind people, to the extent you're interested, trust me, you don't have to, All
right.
All eyes on Eric.
Hi, my name's Eric. I'm Taylor.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Eric, and I'm not My name is Eric, and I'm not an alcoholic.
Yeah. At noon, we have a Rob Paulsen sing-along.
Oh, good. Oh, tomorrow, right?
Yes.
That's tomorrow. Okay,
No,
so
noon today.
Noon today. Well, it's noon somewhere. Let me tell you. Do I have like 2 more minutes?
You have 2 more.
Okay, check this out. The reason you said noon, I said somewhere. Here's another Randy Rogel genius song. He wrote a song about time, about the sort of linear nature of time and how you really can't explain it, right? So this is so great. This is why I love Randy. He goes, let's see. I'm trying to think of the song. Give me a moment.
There's a lot in there.
Okay, here it goes like this. It goes, when you're traveling from Nantucket through Chicago to St. Paul, and you're standing in an airport and you look upon the wall, there's a clock for every city and a different time for all, from Asia through Malaysia to Peru. Did you ever wonder why that when it's 6 o'clock in Maine, at precisely the same moment it is 8 a.m. in Spain? When it's breakfast time in Rome, they're having lunch in the Ukraine, and it's supper up in Upper Kathmandu. If the earth is spinning faster while the sun is moving faster, then a day might only be an hour long. And school, when they begin it, would only last a minute before everybody has to run along. If the earth were the planet that was closest to the sun, a year would be much shorter and you'd have a lot of fun. Because by the time you were in first grade, you'd be over 21, and you live to be 903 or 4. Time is relative, dependent. You can save it, you can spend it, doing things you like to do or learning how. You can't see it, you can't taste it, but you certainly can waste it, which is really what we're doing here right now. The international date line is an imaginary cleft. Today is on the right side, tomorrow's on the left. So when you cross it, do you then arrive the day before you left? That's how it works. It's quite berserk, you see. So if you were born in China while I'm born in Carolina, well, then you're a day ahead of me, you see. So the way I've got it reckoned, if we're born in the same second, then why should you be a day older than me? But it really is no miracle that's difference in our birth, because the world is spherical. That's why around the earth, there's always different times for London, Moscow, Delhi, and Fort Worth. And that's the way it's always gonna be. So remember, when you're traveling from Nantucket to St. Paul, with an airport, and you're standing at those clocks upon the wall, that you might think about this song, my friend, and then you will recall that it was mildly amusing, but then totally confusing, and I'll bet you wish I hadn't sung at all. That is called a tease, so that hopefully that will convince you and people who are of a like mind to come and do our little song thing tomorrow.
Right. So that is at noon.
Okay.
We also have something tonight at 10 o'clock.
Okay, what's that?
Rob Paulsen and Aaron Geek.
Okay.
The other
voice guy? And
yeah.
where are we doing that here?
I think it's the room maybe next door. It's
okay.
It's here. 2 o'clock, Rob Paulsen will be signing more autographs, which was for those that did it at the same spot, right in that great room. At 10 p.m., this is an 18 and over event. Guest Against Humanity. For any of those that have played Cards Against Humanity, our guests will be playing that game.
Oh, I've never played. I don't know what that is.
It's a
That's bad sign, Rob. John and Timothy's on, we're betting
Carl
on
would
you.
not play.
Carl not be
Okay.
playing.
I don't know, Rob. I think that is a, let me see, FELONY. What does that mean? That's what the game is. It's a felony.
So that is for tomorrow.
Okay, great.
And then-
So, and I'll be around. It's just such a pleasure to be here. Thank you, guys. You're just wonderful, and I'll see you around. Okay? Thank you very much.